Thanks for tuning in.
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, joined as always by my guy Brandon, and it is Philly the podcast. So today we are going to be talking a little Colts, but not the way that we've been talking about them lately. We're gonna be going over the draft pick for the Indianapolis Colts at number 21. And to do that, I went and got someone that knows their Colts. So I went and got Jake Arthur. How's it going, man? How you doing today, Jake?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm doing awesome.
Definitely. So before we get into the football talk about where you guys are gonna go, tell them where they can find you, what you do, and I know you're part of the Bleave in Colts podcast. So just let them know where they can find you.
So I'm the co-host of the Bleave in Colts podcast. You can find us. I've got Twitter and Facebook for us. You can just catch us at Bleave in Colts. And I'm also writing for Sports Illustrated's Colts website, Horseshoe Huddle. So you can just go to horseshoehuddle.com or si.com/NFL/Colts if you want to take the long way. So that's where all my content's getting poured into these days.
Definitely. And we'll have all your information in the description. So definitely go support my guy. So let's talk a little bit about the Colts season. You guys had a pretty good season. I mean, just go through the emotions of the year. I mean, you guys got a pretty good coach and everything like that. Just how are you feeling as a Colts fan right now?
So things are looking up. The Colts probably have a few more needs than they normally do over the last few years, but oddly enough, it seems like this team can probably go a little farther than the last couple of years. A lot of it's just dependent on Carson Wentz, as you guys know. Phillip Rivers did pretty well. I think he gave the Colts slightly above average quarterback play. For his physical limitations, I think he did pretty well. So I think a lot of this year just kind of depends on Carson Wentz. I don't think he needs to be spectacular or an MVP or anything. I just think if he can kind of be at Phillip Rivers' level, maybe a little better, then it can kind of get the Colts over the hump. But they still got to get left tackle figured out. The defense is overall pretty good, but they need to make sure that pass rush is good and settled. As you guys know, when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, that pass rush was ridiculous. That defensive line was so good. And it seems like the Super Bowl winner every year has a good pass rush, at least in that game or during the playoffs. So they got to do more there. They know what their needs are, though. If they can take care of those things, then things are looking pretty up this season, I would say.
Yeah. No, I think I would get beat up in my comments if I didn't at least ask this. So I have to ask it. How did you feel about the Carson Wentz trade? How do you feel about Carson Wentz moving forward?
So that obviously was something that was rumored for quite a while. Carson's been on the trading block for pretty much the whole offseason. My first thing was I really preferred for the Colts to try and trade up into the top 5, top 10 and get their quarterback that way of the draft. But as we've seen with some of the moves made over the weekend, it just may not be that realistic. The Colts did not have that firepower. The Carson Wentz trade has grown on me a little more since it first happened. I wasn't totally against it because I really didn't mind what they gave up to get him. Considering what the asking price was, apparently it was going to be like at least 2 firsts or whatever. For them to only have to give up a third this year and then a conditional second and likely first-round pick next year, that's not that big a deal. I think if they let it get far enough to where they have to give up a first-round pick next year, then things are probably going well. Because if he's out there as their starter and he's playing like he did with the Eagles last year, I'm not so sure they let him see that 70% of the snaps, 75% of the snaps. But yeah, I think the ingredients are in his favor to do pretty well here. He's got a really good run game with Jonathan Taylor, who finished 3rd in the league in rushing last year. The offensive line, as long as they can get someone competent at left tackle, that could be one of his better offensive lines he's been behind. The receivers still working on some things. They've got a decent group of pass catchers overall when you consider running back, tight end, and receiver. So although they could use more juice there in those groups, they've got more than enough for him to be all right. So overall, I think things should go decently well for him. I trust whatever Frank Reich's plan for him is. So I don't see it being a disaster. I think at the very worst, we'll probably see average quarterback play out of him again at worst.
Yeah, I remember having trust.
I mean, if anyone's organization kind of knows this feeling, it's you guys. It's when you think you have your franchise quarterback and you guys are going to have him for 10 plus years, and then all of a sudden, abruptly, that guy's gone. Yeah. For you guys, it was Andrew Luck. For us, it's Carson Wentz. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that transition of just going from quarterback to from like Jacoby Brissett to Phillip Rivers to now Carson Wentz, and how that transition and everything was making you feel at the start of every season? Do you have any advice for Eagles fans as we're kind of sitting hoping that we can find our future again?
Yeah. So luckily for the Eagles fans, they have Jalen Hurts to fall back on. So even if they can't come away with one of the better quarterbacks in this draft or whatever, which apparently they've been told not to pursue one of the top quarterbacks, they have the firepower in the draft and everything. It seems to build around Hurts, and they'll at least know if he's not going to be the answer after the year, I would think, because he played decently well, maybe some inconsistencies last year, but I think being given the whole year in 2021, you guys should know. For the Colts, they had to go back to Jacoby Brissett, which we'd seen before for a whole year. There was a lot of optimism, hoping, he's been here for another couple years, learning from Frank Reich and Andrew Luck, so hopefully things would go really well. And the team was doing really well for the first half of that first season without Andrew Luck. And then it went downhill in a hurry as soon as he got hurt. It's like as soon as he got hurt, all bets were off. He was an inconsistent passer to begin with, but then it just took a whole different level. So I like where you guys are sitting, having Jalen Hurts. But, having to do this quarterback carousel every year, let's just hope Carson Wentz is – maybe if he's not the 10-year guy, maybe he's their answer for 4 or 5 years or something. That's the hope, because hopefully the Colts aren't picking in good enough of a position in the draft to have to get a quarterback that high. But yeah, it's something where you just hope the ride is kind of over. Yeah, it's not fun to have to find a new guy every year. Yeah.
And it's weird. I feel like the NFL has gotten to a point, like it used to be like you build your team through the draft and like it's a slow process and you're willing to go through that process. Now I feel like it's cut everybody that you can, get as much money as you can in 1 year, get as many draft picks as you can, and make this rebuild quick. Like I feel like that's the mindset of so many NFL teams, even with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, we get a lot of crap, I'll say, especially because of the restructuring we do. They are restructuring. The way that they're doing their contracts, at some point it's going to bite them in the butt. But it doesn't really matter if you can win 2 or 3 Super Bowls. You know what I'm saying? So the next thing I want to ask you, going off piggybacking off you being able to know more than us in this situation, we have Nick Sirianni now. Can you just kind of give us a little bit of an idea of what he did last year and what we can kind of expect maybe from your perspective?
Yeah, so it's hard to know just right on the surface what to expect offensively for you guys, because he wasn't the play caller. Frank was. But by everything we in the media have all learned over the last few years with him being in Indianapolis, him and Frank Reich have kind of been tied at the hip throughout weekly game planning and everything. He's a very energetic guy. Just watching him on the practice field, got a lot of energy. He's a player's coach, but he does demand a lot out of them. He's not just going to be completely one-sided and want to be their buddy. He is very demanding. He wants effort and enthusiasm out of them on the practice field, because the whole Colts organization is one that is they fully believe, if you don't practice well, then you're not going to play. So that's if there's any lazy bones or anything on the Eagles, I don't think it's going to fly, because he's going to demand a lot out of him. He's brought some coaches from the Colts with him. I love the Jonathan Gannon hire. He was getting looks as defensive coordinator other places that didn't just hire a Colts coach as their head coach. So no, I think offensively, it probably rely on the run game a bit. I think Miles Sanders is going to have a bigger role. I think he's really going to like Miles Sanders. I think they'll capitalize on Jalen Hurts' athleticism because they mixed in things with Jacoby Brissett and Phillip Rivers last year. So now they've got a quarterback that that can make things happen on his feet and throw the ball. They do a lot of passing concepts that are built to get yards after catch, lots of crossers, slants, things like that. So I have thought specifically Jalen Reagor that he might be a pretty good fit for what Nick Sirianni wants to do. Dallas Goedert, they're very heavily involved with the tight ends, so Goddard could have a big year as well. But no, I kind of get a little upset about at the introductory press conference. That's I think he was just nervous that day. That's not the same guy you're going to get. He is going to quickly become one of Philadelphia media's favorite coaches to talk to. I'm sure he's a real fun guy to talk to.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. That's a little sign of relief right there, because there are people that look at that press conference, for instance, and say, "Oh, well, this is going to be a wash." But trying to transition over to like free agency a little bit. You guys re-signed. I mean, one of your better wide receivers over the last couple of years in T.Y. Hilton. Are you excited that he's back as a Colt and could potentially maybe even finish his career as a Colt? Or were you kind of like, if he didn't resign, it would have been okay, but like, what are your thoughts about that?
I thought they would have lived if he didn't get re-signed, but as free agency went on and more of those receivers were coming off the board, I knew they wouldn't go heavily after wide receivers financially. Someone like Allen Robinson or Kenny Golladay, Chris Godwin, although a couple of those guys got the franchise tag, I didn't think those big deals were going to happen. So when the guys on T.Y. Hilton's, salary level started going off, John Brown's gone, Nelson Aguilar's gone, all these guys are coming off the board. T.Y. Hilton kind of became a lot more of a necessity, and it became a lot more important for them to bring him back. And I think he honestly fits best with what Carson Wentz does, because T.Y. was never better than when Andrew Luck was out there at quarterback. Just how Andrew liked to extend plays. He had the big arm. He was aggressive downfield. That's a lot more like what Carson Wentz is like. With Phillip Rivers, it's not a big arm. Everything is kind of built on timing. Jacoby Brissett was wildly inconsistent and didn't throw downfield a lot. So to get T.Y. back for 1 year, I think $10 million, to see what he can do with someone like Carson Wentz, I really like that pairing. I don't know if T.Y. is going to have some big star year, but I think he'll be a very good player still. We saw a stretch run last year that showed he's not done physically. He was really dominant for a few game stretch, and he looked like his old self. So the Colts offense, just with Phillip Rivers, was a lot more about spreading the ball around, and you weren't going to get one guy dominating the touches like that. So I really think as long as T.Y. stays healthy this year, people will realize he's not washed up anymore.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting storyline. I had him on my fantasy team, so
it
was a little upsetting, sometimes. Yeah, it was a little upset. And it's like, do you release him? What do you do with him? Because it's like, at one point, it is what it is. What can you do? It's fantasy. So, one of the subscribers said, you heard about the Farley 6227428. And it made me think of something. It made me ask. I want to ask a question. Are there any names, before this pro day, before these pro days, before these virtual pro days, whatever you want to call them? Is there a name that's like starting to stick out to you now because of the pro days? Like anything that, maybe came out at you?
Well, someone who I think has really maximized this offseason in the pre-draft process is someone like Rondale Moore, wide receiver from Purdue, just an hour north of me here. Didn't really play much last year and was considered to be like a huge star his first couple years up with Purdue. But he's running blazing fast times. He's jumping out of the gym. He's really small. He's only like 5'7" or something, but he's proving his case to make teams think more Tyreek Hill than someone like D'Anthony Thomas or something. You know what I mean? I think he's helped himself a lot and has really made the most of the pre-draft process. Someone like Jason Owe as well from Penn State. I think he is like a perfect fit for what the Colts like to draft in defensive ends. His workout and pro day stuff has been phenomenal. So those are a couple guys I've really been impressed with as to what they've done in their pre-draft workouts.
You would keep Jason Owe in basically the same jersey, like the Colts and the Penn State jersey is like
right,
just maybe a shade off of blue. Like, but go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, the nice classic uniforms.
Yeah, really. But go ahead, Brandon.
Oh yeah, so I guess now that we're talking draft, what are some of the Colts' needs? What are some holes that you guys need to fill, if not through free agency, through this draft?
Yeah, so the two most glaring ones are defensive end. They had 40 sacks last year, and I think that was tied for 12th, but it just wasn't enough. I think they had like 6 or 7 games where they had either 1 or 0 sacks, so it was really inconsistent. They get sacks in bunches. They have several games where they get like 4, 5, 6 sacks, things like that. So it needs to be more consistent. They really need a pass rush. Like I said earlier, the defense is really good already, but the missing factor in it is having a more consistent pass rush. They've added Isaac Rochelle through free agency. They're still talking to Justin Houston, but he's 32. They lost Danico Autry. So really their only other guys they have on the roster at defensive end are Kamoko Toure, who has been hurt most of his career to this point. He had an ankle injury in 2019 that cost him like 20 games. And then Tyquan Lewis, pretty decent rookie year, really, not a second year even to talk about at all, and then bounce back again in third year. But they like to kick him inside a lot. And then Ben Banagoo was a healthy scratch most of the year. So they absolutely have to do something at defensive end. And without having that one stud guy still, they have to be on the search for it, because defense just they don't seem to win championships unless you have that stud pass rusher.
Yeah.
They
First
also
of all, shout out to, I'm sorry. I just want to say real quick, shout out to you for being able to say all these names, because like some of these names are like really hard. You're just like rattling them off. Like I can't pronounce half the names on our own team. So good job on that. That was just impressive.
It's my job to write these names out 100 times.
Yeah.
But no, they left tackle. They've made 2 moves, but neither of them are enough to really instill confidence moving forward. Sam Tevy from the Chargers, who had awful numbers with the Chargers, could be a better fit here, but who knows? And then also Julian Davenport, that actually got announced today, even though it's been in the works for about a week or so. Neither of those guys have had stellar careers to this point. The expectation is that they're going to try and find their long-term answer at left tackle in the draft, and this is a really good class for it. They probably need to do it in the first couple rounds because they don't have that 3rd round pick because of the Wentz trade. So those are the 2 biggest. I think they'll also probably try and put a premium on some sort of playmaking tight end or like a field stretching receiver. And then cornerback depth is very important as well. They have Xavier Rhodes for 1 more year. I don't really know if they'll re-sign him again after this year. Kenny Moore is a stud, probably the best slot corner in the league. But then Rocky Sin, this is a very critical year 3 for him. A pretty decent rookie year, but did not take a leap forward in year 2. And they're going to know a lot about him after this season. So they need cornerback depth as well, because as you guys know, you can't get caught without corners or your defense will be bad.
Yep.
Yep.
Historically bad. Oh, that hurt a little bit. So a question I like to ask, right before we get into the actual pick. We all have our dream draft. We all have how we want it to go, right? But we also all have that mindset of, if this happens, I'll be, I'll go crazy. I'll be upset. Is there any move that the Colts can make around at 21 that would just send you up the wall?
Yeah, so they're a team that drafts best player available. So pretty much every position is on the board for them at any time. A a running back would really be upsetting because you've got like Najee Harris and the kid from UNC and Travis Etienne. So you've got some worthy guys there. That would not be a move that would be supported very well. Safety, they've already got a couple really good young starting safeties. The most realistic one, I think, though, would be like Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle from Alabama, because the Colts put such a premium on offensive and defensive line play. If he's available there and they really like him, it would not surprise me at all if they took him, even though they don't need a defensive tackle really right now.
Yeah, that's straight. I think that's always the theme. It's like, I just hope my team does not reach at that pick, whether it's on a player or whatever it may be. So let's get into what the people want. What at number 21, what do you have the Indianapolis Colts doing and why?
Sorry, say that one more time. It broke up there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I was saying at number 21, what do you have the Indianapolis Colts doing and why would you pick that player?
Okay. So, yeah, there's let's see. I think someone had picked right before me, someone I wanted. It was, so I was looking at Jalen Mayfield and Christian Darrisaw. That's what I really wanted for him. But so I'm going with Jalen Phillips, the defensive end from Miami on this one. I think he really fits what the Colts look for in a defensive end, kind of a long, lean pass rusher. He's got a lot of football ahead of him. He's very much an ascending guy. He had the injury issues and that retirement with UCLA, and then went in and was a stud for Miami last year. I think it was like 8.5 sacks and like 13 or 15 tackles for loss. So he showed exactly what you want and what you want to see in a guy like that. He's athletic. He's got bend. He can play the run as well. So I think he would fit what the Colts really want. And he's got the potential to be that stud pass rusher that they really need.
Yeah, Miami's got some dogs on that line. They got
every year.
Yeah, and they have athletic dogs too. It's not just it's not just those guys that are just going to come up and barrel roll you over. I guess they're going to run around you. They're going to run over you. It's crazy over there. So I like that pick. What do you think, Brandon?
I agree. I mean, like you just kind of laid it out there before. In order to get your defensive backs playing well, you need a great pass rush, and you want to do better than being tied for 12th with sacks or whatever other stat, a quarterback hurries or whatever it is. You need that pass rush to be dominant in order to be really good in this league and to have guys like Rock Yassin really flourish, not having to just be put on the island and the quarterback chilling in the backfield the whole time. So I think that's a good pick. You go after a need that you want, and you get an athletic guy.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah, that name's starting to pick up a little steam with Colts fans lately too. So I think that'd be a good one. I think what's really beneficial for the Colts is with this being a COVID year and not all the same scouts are going all the same places. Daniel Jeremiah actually mentioned this on his conference call. There's not as much groupthink going on this year, and teams are doing a lot of their own scouting and coming up with their own conclusions. And so therefore the rankings at certain positions are like completely different depending on who you talk to. And that's especially true at edge defender this year. It seems like Kwity Paye is pretty much the only guy that's like top 2 for most teams. Otherwise, Greg Russo, Jalen Phillips, everyone. So I think it's very realistic that Jalen Phillips could be the Colts' number 1 or number 2 edge defender in this draft.
That would be interesting. I like the edge defenders that they have in this draft. Like you said, I think it's a very deep class. You scared the heck out of me, and I'm pretty sure with a lot of the other Eagles fans when you said, the non-group thinking portion of that, because all I'm thinking is Howie Roseman's at home, just like, how am I going to mess this up? How am I going to mess this up? But hey, Jake, I appreciate you so much for coming on the show, chopping it up, and kind of giving us an insight into the Colts and kind of what we can expect, man.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
Definitely, man. So you got anything you want to say before we get out of here, guys? Any of you guys?
Just make sure you guys go check out Jake, man, if you want to drop everything again, like you said in the beginning, so our subscribers can know where to find you.
Yep. So at Horseshoe Huddle on it's Sports Illustrated's Colts website. We just kind of got this thing rebranded and relaunched at the beginning of March, and it's doing really well so far. Really proud of the work that me and my guy Josh Carney have done so far. So check that out. I'm on Twitter at Jake Arthur NFL. That's Facebook as well, and then Facebook and Twitter for my podcast Bleave in Colts.
Yes, sir. And I will have all the links and everything in the description. So definitely go show love, because you got to always do your homework on the enemy. You know, we're playing you guys next year, not this season. So we got to make sure we know where you are next year. But everybody, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. But other than that, y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly, and we are out here. Peace.